say there's a classic joke that says, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your relatives. And I was very fortunate that the relatives I attained and got because of marriage have been a tremendous family, who really care about family, care about each other. And so today we have Chani's grandmother, my grandmother, who we were talking about earlier, we call Bobby, or Bobby Sternberg, who over the decades as the Rebbe was living in Crown Heights and had many different campaigns and different initiatives that he began. My grandmother and her extended family, her parents, her father, played a tremendous role in many of these initiatives. And one of those initiatives was having women and young women, children, lighting Shabbat candles. And so we asked her if she would speak today a little bit about that. And she has as we said, she has the screen, not the floor, and really can speak on any subject that she would like. But I know that there have been some amazing stories, and guidance and tremendous feeling for this mitzvah of lighting Shabbat candles that I think all of us can learn from and just learn more about. So I'm going to ask my grandmother, Mrs. Esther Sternberg, to please take the floor, but we're saying the screen, and
Okay.
share with us all of your insight and stories, and we're looking forward to learning about it. Thank you.
Okay. I really don't think you used the right word when you said all your stories, because that would take about 1,000 hours. So I think you meant a few chosen stories, because we don't have that much time, although I could continue at another date. I'm going to start with the beginning, and it's actually 46 years ago. Very apropos or unapropos, I don't know. The campaign started on September 11th in 1974. At that time, we didn't know what September 11th was. And maybe this campaign to light up the world, perhaps it mitigated that the attack of September 11th was not as terrible as it could have been. As terrible as it was, I'm not taking away from that. Unfortunately, there are many people that died, but it could have been so much more horrific. But I just looked up the date because I knew the Hebrew date of when it started. It was actually on the September 11th. It actually happened when the Rebbe was addressing all the Jewish women in the neighborhood. And I think many of you have heard that his talks were sent over, like we understand Zoom today. There was a technology where telephones were connected to his microphone, and there were many people that had lines that they were able to rent from somebody who set up many telephone lines in a communication center right in the office at 770 Eastern Parkway. And many people were, we called it hooked up. Today we can understand what Zoom is. You can understand that hooked up means that they were able to hook up their telephone to the Rebbe's direct microphone. And if they put the telephone on, today what we understand as speakerphone, those days we didn't have a speakerphone. We had an amplifying system. You had to buy a box that was an amplifier. I go back a long time ago, so I'm telling you ancient history. And this amplifier, you could set up in a synagogue. You could set it up in any large area, and many hundreds of people were listening in different parts of the world. Actually, thousands were listening as the Rebbe was speaking from Brooklyn. So when he gave this blessing, a traditional blessing to Jewish women before the new year, that particular day, which was the 24th day of the Jewish month of Elul, which was September 11th, 1974, the Rebbe went on to say, in the middle of his blessing about what we as mothers can accomplish in this world, in our homes, he went on to say that unfortunately we're living in a very dark spiritual world, and we have to do something about it. And he would like to suggest that we reach out to every Jewish woman, and even to young Jewish girls as young as 3 years old, that they should add their holy light, their physical light of a Shabbat candle. By making a blessing over it, they're adding spiritual light to the world. So actually, when he spoke to us, it was 5 o'clock in the evening and the sun was still shining. But he was talking about that we are living in a terrible spiritual darkness, and he meant it spiritually, not physically. And asked us that we should reach out to women who perhaps have forgotten about this very beautiful mitzvah, this wonderful tradition, or perhaps when they came to America, they thought it was very un-American, or they would be looked at as fanatic because they ran away from the war and there was so much anti-Semitism. So many people stopped doing this tradition, um, and perhaps they didn't even tell their children to do it, their daughters, and they never taught their daughters. So the Rebbe said, for whatever reason, there are women that are not lighting Shabbat candles. We should try to reach them, and we should influence them, and we should tell them what they are able to accomplish by lighting Shabbat candles, because they bring a spiritual light into the world. They bring a spiritual light into their home. They bring special blessing to the members of their family. And we are told that women were given this specific mitzvah. Of course, if there's no woman at home for whatever reason, then the man has to light the candles, because candles should be lit in honor of Shabbat. But the women were given the special opportunity. It's her mitzvah because she is considered the spiritual matriarch of the world. The woman's soul is the matriarch of the world in a spiritual realm. And when she does it with gladness of heart, she brings a lot of spirituality, a lot of happiness. She brings peace and blessing to the home and to the entire world. So the Rebbe said we should go and find women and even young girls. I remember standing there and thinking, well, that sounds like a wonderful thing. I don't know who's going to do it, and we'll just see. Because at that time, the Rebbe had initiated 5 other campaigns to get people to do specific mitzvot. One of them is to check the mezuzot of your home to make sure that everybody has kosher mezuzot on the doorpost. One of them is to make sure that every man over the age of bar mitzvah puts on tefillin. There was another campaign for people to give charity, another campaign for people to have Jewish books in their home, and another campaign to learn more Torah, that people should have more Torah study. So when that campaign, those campaigns were actually run by an organization called Lubavitch Youth Organization that is made up of men and boys, young boys, and they would go out every Friday. They would go to different office buildings, and they would try to get men to put the tefillin on. And they would drive these, I don't know if you see them in Arizona, they would drive like an RV, as that's what it's called, and they called it a mitzvah tank. It was actually this RV where people could come in and they could sit down and get something to eat or drink, and they could do a mitzvah when they're inside. And very often they would come in to put on the tefillin, or somebody would speak to them about other mitzvot. So all of this was usually done by the men. And women, we had different things that we did. We had classes for women, but we were not in the habit of doing a campaign. So I really never expected to be involved in a campaign. However, the next day, there was another talk that the Rebbe gave to everyone, because it happened to be the anniversary of the day that the world was created. The 25th day of the month of Elul is when the world was created. So very often the Rebbe would give a talk. And again, he reiterated his call to get women to light Shabbat candles. So I said, oh, that's so interesting. We're going to probably have a new campaign. It was going to be called a campaign. But the next day, I got a phone call from the Rebbe's secretary, because I happened to be, that year, we had a rotation basis of women that headed the women's organization called Lubavitch Women's Organization. And we had a presidium of about 15 ladies, and every year, 2 women rotated to be the president. So I was, so to speak, the outgoing president. And I got a phone call that the Rebbe wanted this to be printed in the Jewish newspaper for the people who read only Yiddish. And I had no idea how to put the ad in. And to make a long story short, I reached somebody who worked at a newspaper. He knew my family very well. He said, I'll do you a favor. I'll do it for you as long as you give me the material and what the Rebbe said. So the Rebbe's words were printed up from the 2 different times that he spoke. I brought it to this man's house, and he did me a favor and produced the most beautiful ad. And the Rebbe saw it, and I got a lot of credit for it. The Rebbe was very happy because it was done very professionally. And really, I didn't do it, but I got the credit from the Rebbe. So I felt if I got the credit, I have to do more, to deserve this credit. So the next thing that happened was that the Rebbe spoke just before, and just on Rosh Hashanah, which was a few days later, that he wants to make sure that girls would love to light Shabbat candles since it's something new, and he wants to give them a gift of 2 coins. A gift from the Rebbe is something very dear. It doesn't matter if it's worth 10 cents, but from his hand, it's something that becomes very precious. And he was going to give 2 coins with the value of 10. 10 has very esoteric explanation. There are 10 commandments. There are 10 many things that have to do with 10. And the Rebbe said he's going to give 2 dimes, 2 coins of 10 cents to every girl that gives in her name and her mother's name. And he will give her a gift in order for her to light the Shabbat candles. He could continue to say that people in Israel and in France or in England should get coins with the equivalent of 10, and he's going to pay them back, and it will be a gift from him. So I was in charge of giving out these coins to principals from school and counselors from camps and directors of whatever it was. And we were giving out thousands and thousands of candles, of dimes to these children. A few days later was just before Yom Kippur. And on the day before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe would give people a piece of honey cake. Honey cake symbolizes sweet for a sweet new year. The Yiddish word is lekach, in case any of you have ever heard that expression, lekach. And he would have thousands of pieces of cut up honey cake. And he himself personally would distribute a piece to every single person that passed by. When I passed by to get my piece of honey cake with a blessing that he gave, and we were waiting, this blessing was so precious to us because he would say Shana Tova Umetuka, which means a good year and a sweet one. And that meant that we're going to have a good sweet year if that's what he wishes us. And I'm so emotional to get this blessing. But instead of giving me the blessing, he said, do you still have enough dimes? And I was in total shock because the Rebbe's talking about money when I'm talking about life. So I was like, I didn't know what he wanted from me. And my husband brought me back down to earth, and he said, he's asking if you have enough dimes for the girls. Because I was giving out so many dimes, he was wondering if any were left. So I remember going like this with my finger, and I just have a few left. And the Rebbe put his hand into his pocket. And lo and behold, in his pocket, he had loads and loads of these packages of dimes. If you ever saw that in the bank, they give you like a little roll of 100 dimes to a roll. It used to be a paper roll, now it's a plastic roll. And he had many of these rolls in his pocket. And he gave them to me in my hand. I didn't have a pocketbook with me, so I just held them in my hand. And then he put his hand in his next pocket, and he took out some more dimes. And they weigh a lot because it's a lot of dimes. And then my husband had to take the other ones because my hands were full with the first set of dimes. And he said, I didn't want that it should be Erev Yom Kippur, and there should be girls that perhaps want to start lighting, and they won't light if they don't get the dimes. So he thought about it in the morning, and I came about 4 hours later in the day. So he was standing there for so many hours with all these heavy dimes in his pocket, just to give it to me to make sure that perhaps there's a little girl somewhere that wants to light, and she won't light if she doesn't get the dimes. So I realized the Rebbe taking this very seriously. He cares about every child. So we started to do a lot of propaganda. We went on the radio, we went into the newspapers, we did so much I can't even describe to you. We did something very interesting on the radio. We went to a station and gave them a script that they were going to read. We were going to pay for 60 seconds slot, which meant for 1 minute, they're going to read my script. And the script was going to explain the importance of lighting Shabbat candles. And, the whole explanation, as much as we can say in 1 minute. However, the company, station was NBC, if anybody knows what that station is, very important station. They refused to take it unless it had a monetary value. And what was monetary? It's a mitzvah doesn't have a monetary value. So we quickly added one line. If you need a set of candle holders, please send us $1, because it had to have commercial value. So we had to say something. The $1 was not going to do anything, but we had to say something. So please send us $1 and we'll send you a set of candle holders. You can't imagine how many thousands of people reached out to us, sending us $1 to send them candle holders. I don't know if these people did have their own or they wanted to start to light, but as long as they asked for it, we sent it. And we had a whole staff of people packaging up boxes with candlesticks, and we had to ship it out with UPS. And I used to say UPS was created just for me because I had the driver come in the last one at night when he was finished with his run. I said, come to me the last one, because the whole day we're packaging the requests and we wanted to get it to them as soon as possible, because if they asked for the candlesticks, if we got the letter on Tuesday, we wanted to make sure they have it for that Friday that they can light. I want to tell you a very interesting story that happened. That on Friday, one week on Friday, exactly 45 minutes before the time that you have to light the candles. And I want to reiterate, the time to light the candles is 18 minutes before sunset. And we still have leeway within those 18 minutes, because at sunset, Shabbat begins by itself, whether or not we light the candles. So we have to make sure that people light the candles 18 minutes before sunset, or at least until the moment of sunset and not any later. So we wanted to make sure that people get the candlesticks on time. This particular Friday, I get a call 45 minutes before the time that I have to light my own candles. And it's a message from the Rebbe's office that he received in the mail a letter from a lady addressed to him. Now, the message on the radio was to send it to Lubavitch Women's Organization. That's our organization. But the address is 770 Eastern Parkway, because that's a very known address. So this lady, one lady, happened to not hear properly, and she wrote Lubavitch Rebbe at 770 Eastern Parkway, not Lubavitch Women's Organization. Now, the Rebbe never, ever let anybody open up his mail. He opens up all his mail himself. So he gets a letter from somebody and she says, Dear Lubavitch Rebbe, here is $1. Please send me candlesticks. Now, it could be comical that such a great man would receive a letter from a lady for, here's $1, send me candlesticks. But the Rebbe took it very seriously and sent me a message that I have to see that this lady lights her candles today, on time. Well, I was so shocked. How am I going to reach her? I can't send her a package that'll arrive today. So I looked at her name and address, and I figured I'm going to call her on the phone, and I'm going to ask her, perhaps she has any kind of candles at home, and I'll just tell her what to do. I call her up to information. Years ago, we had a service. I don't know if it's still today. You dial 411, and you could ask people for the phone number of anybody when you give them the name and address. And I was told that there's no listing. I was so hysterical. The Rebbe wants her to light today, and she doesn't have a phone. So I looked at the address, and I saw that it's about 15 minutes away from my house, 18 minutes away, maybe. I figured, you know what? I have maybe 12 minutes. I'm going to go. I'm going to run, give her the candles, run right back, and I'll have enough time to be able to light my own candles. So I took 2 of my daughters with me, and I ran with a whole bag of a few candles, candle holders and candles. I flew down to her house. I left the car double parked because I didn't have time to look for a parking place. It's so late. And I go into this building that she lives, and there's a very big lobby, and there are 2 sets of apartments on the right side, on the left. And she lives on the right side, and I rang her bell. I promise you I could have still been ringing the bell today because nobody's answering the door. And I was hysterical. The Rebbe wants her light today, but she's not answering the door. What am I going to do? So I started ringing the doorbells of all the neighbors, thinking maybe somebody knows when she's coming back, or maybe she happens to be by a neighbor. Nobody answered the door. I was hysterical. The Rebbe wants me to get her to light today, and I can't reach her. Then I realized that across the lobby, there's another set of doors. Let's see, maybe there somebody knows her. So we rang every bell, and suddenly one lady answers the door, a lovely lady, and she doesn't hear very well. So she says, yes, how can I help you? And I was already so out of breath. I said, I'm looking for a lady called Mrs. Herrer, and I couldn't get her number because she doesn't have a phone. She says, I know Mrs. Herrer. She has a phone, but it's not listed. So I realized she really does know Mrs. Herrer. I said, but she's not home either, and I have to give her something. Oh, she's home, she tells me. So I see she really knows Mrs. Hera. I said, but she doesn't answer the door. So she says, oh, she doesn't hear well. Come with me. I'll show you how to reach Mrs. Hera. So we, my two daughters and I and this lady, start to bang on the door. And suddenly the door opens and Mrs. Hera's there. I said, Mrs. Hera, are you Mrs. Hera? By now it's so late. She says, yes. I said, Mrs. Hera, did you ask for candlesticks from the Lubavitcher Rebbe? So she answers me in Yiddish. Those of you who know Yiddish, she said, yeah, ich will Bändchen Licht, which means in Yiddish, I want to light candles. So I'm completely floored because if she knows how to say this in Yiddish, why is she not lighting candles? Why does she need my candlesticks? So I said, if you know what it means to light candles, why do you need my candlesticks? So she said, come inside, I'll show you. And she takes me in, and she has a large closet, very tall ceilings, that building. And on the very top shelf of the closet is her candelabra. That when she moved to this apartment, her children put the candelabra all the way on top. And the children don't visit her, and she can't take the candelabra down. So she can't light her Shabbat candle. So when she heard on the phone, on the radio, that we will give out candlesticks, she was so excited because now she can light Shabbat candles. I was so shocked to hear that. She says, you think it's only me? I go to the Senior Citizen Center every afternoon, and all my friends bemoan that they lost the candlesticks, or they broke, or they were stolen, and they're not lighting Shabbat candles, which they would love to do, but they don't have candle holders. So I was so excited. I gave her the candle holders, and she said, if you call me after Shabbat, I'm going to give you a list of places to go. You're going to meet hundreds of women who so eagerly want to light the candles, they just don't have the candle holders with which to light them with. So we realized that's a way we have to reach out to these people. We were very fortunate that a gentleman in Brooklyn owned a metal stamping company, which meant that he made things out of metal. He had a contract with the government, and he made other things. And he reached out to us that he wants to make a candle holder for us. And he came up with a design of something that I was very surprised. It was pretty tall. I would say it was about 6-7 inches tall. It had a very narrow base, and it had a very, the holder was like in the shape of an inverted V, almost like instead of being a straight line, it was like an opened up V. And I asked him, why did you make this design? He said he thinks it's modern art. Anyway, I took it because we needed candle holders. And I didn't even ask the Rebbe until today. I'm sorry I didn't. And we just gave them out because we had made appointments to go visit children in schools. And we went into the supermarkets, and we meet people in the malls, and we would speak to them in the street and ask them if they would like Shabbat candles. And one day I get a call from the Rebbe's office that he said I should put a sticker on the bottom of the candle holder, and the children of the schools, I should leave a room where the children can write their name and the name of the school. And he thought that would want the principals would get excited about it, and the principals will push the children he'll urge the children to light. So I went to a company that made a very beautiful sticker, and I sent it to the Rebbe that day, and I was so proud of myself that I took care of something he wanted the same day that he asked for it. The biggest surprise I got was that before I even came home, there was already a phone call from the Rebbe's office. What right do I have to distribute the candle holder that is so unstable? And the Rebbe went on to say through his secretary that the candle holder is too tall, the base is too narrow, and it could tip over very easily, and it might not be safe. We cannot use this candle holder. I remember starting to cry, being so upset because I'm doing everything to make the Rebbe happy, and then he said that these candlesticks are no good. So we called up the manufacturer, and we told him he has to make something more stable. And he didn't know what to do, and he made a few samples, and he sent them into the Rebbe for the Rebbe to decide which one of these 5 different samples. I was told by the Rebbe's secretary that the Rebbe wasn't happy with any of the candles, but he took the top part where the candle goes in of one. He pointed to the middle of a different, I'm still going to show you what the candlestick looked like, and he pointed to a base of the candlestick that was a wider base. The circumference was wider, so it would make the candlestick more stable. I'm going to show you a picture of what this candlestick looks like. So the Rebbe chose this base, this top from one, this round circle from another candlestick, and this base, which is 4.5 inches in circumference, when it's on the table, is very stable. And this is a candlestick that the Rebbe designed 46 years ago, and we're still producing it today. Now, I want to share something with you. We have distributed over 6 million of these candlesticks in the 46 years because we gave them out to every school all through New York. We sent them all over the world. We sent them to the Israeli army, to soldiers. We sent them to Europe, to France, to England. You can't even imagine where we've been sending it. To Gibraltar. I mean, I can make a whole list of places we sent it. But I have to tell you something that happened to me yesterday that is so moving and it's so exciting. It happened just yesterday. I get a lot of mail this time of year because we have a candle lighting brochure. This is what it looks like. It's a little pamphlet that explains the importance of lighting candles. It has a calendar of the correct times, and it also has the dates of the holidays and the different blessings that we say on the different holidays. All of this is included in this brochure. And this is something that the Rebbe checked over and added his comments and added his information about. And we send these brochures out. We have a big mailing list. We mail it every year. So this time of year, I very often get phone calls from people or letters from people that they want one for a cousin, for a niece, for a neighbor, whatever it is. They got one in the mail and they want some more. So I'm used to getting a lot of mail this time of year. Just yesterday, I want to read something to you that I'm just flabbergasted about. And the lady writes like this: "Good morning. Thank you, Lubavitcher ladies, for your continuing commitment of providing a guide to lighting Shabbat candles, not only in America, but throughout the world. Over 35 years ago, you mailed my preschool-age daughter Miriam her very own candle holder, which became part of Friday evening, wherever life experience beckoned. Although she and her husband received candle holders for their wedding 10 years ago, Miriam prefers the gift from Lubavitch ladies. Baruch Hashem, thank God. Perhaps a daughter of them will continue this beautiful gift for Shabbat that this little girl got many years ago." I was very excited to get this letter because 35 years later, after a little girl was so excited, today she prefers those candle holders above those she got for her wedding. So I tried to call this lady. She lives somewhere in Maine. I tried through the internet. I found her number, and she doesn't answer the phone. And I was so upset because I wanted to speak to her. It was such an interesting letter. I called her all day long. She didn't answer the phone. I called her till 9 o'clock at night. She didn't answer. This morning at 8 o'clock, 8:30, I figured, let me call her. And lo and behold, she answers the phone. Her name is Andrea. I said, "Andrea, I got a letter from you that is so beautiful." And she was very thankful that I called her. And she was telling me how much her granddaughter enjoys this candle holder. And she goes on to say, it's so interesting. It's such a sturdy piece. It's made so well that it's so sturdy on the table. When she said those words, I had to tell her that it was the Rebbe who actually designed it to make it sturdy. When I told her that, she burst out crying. And she said, the Rebbe cared about every little girl, that it should be safe? You want to tell me this great Rebbe that has the whole world on his mind cared about the safety of the little girl? And she burst out crying. So we had this very emotional phone call. And she says, I know so many people that have granddaughters, and I think they would love to have the candlestick. I'm going to get a list of their names and addresses, and I'm going to send it to you. So this is something that just happened hot off the press. I get many letters and I get many phone calls, and a lot of people are touched. And I have to tell you, what's interesting is that people were introduced to lighting Shabbat candles through our campaign. And at the time, sometimes they would answer, I'm not really interested, or it's not for me, or I'm not religious, so I don't have to do it. As much as I say you don't have to be religious, every mitzvah you do is a mitzvah in itself. You don't have to be orthodox, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be committed. But if you light a candle, you did a mitzvah. And some people just are not interested. Lo and behold, years later, I get a letter from them or a phone call that, I changed my mind and I decided to light the candle. And it brought me such happiness and it brought so much light to the house and so much spirituality. I love it. And so many people have since then started to keep Friday night in a proper way and to have Shabbat meal. And then they started to keep Shabbat itself. And they would not do things on Shabbat that are not permitted because they had the candles light lit and they felt that they started keeping Shabbat, they should keep it properly. So we never know when we speak to somebody if it's going to affect them now, or maybe it won't affect them at all, or maybe it'll affect them in 5 years or in 10 years. But we have to keep on going because the blessings that it brings to every Jewish woman is so great that we have to just try to give everyone the opportunity that they should want to light up their life through lighting a Shabbat candle. I just want to tell you one more story because I was told to speak for 30 minutes and then open up for questions. But I have to tell you something unbelievable. Last year, my children gave us a gift to go on a special trip. We were in Israel for a wedding, and that year was 75 years of the passing of the Rebbe's father, 75 years previously, now it's 76 years. He had passed away in exile in Kazakhstan, which is in Southeast Asia, very clear near to China, where he was exiled just because he was a religious man and the Russian government sent him to this godforsaken place to rot. And he's buried in a very faraway place. And last year, there was a very strong movement of hundreds of people around the world that wanted to go to his burial place on the day of his yahrzeit. I think you all know what yahrzeit means. And our children gave us a gift that we should go for this special 2 days of lectures and banquets and gatherings. And so many people from all over the world were going to be there. We went from Israel. We were going through Ukraine. And something happened on the plane in Israel, and we were delayed for 2 hours. And I said to my husband, we're missing our connection. We're never going to get to this place on time. He said, don't worry. Maybe they're going to hold a plane for us. I said, I don't think they will. Anyway, we come to Ukraine. And by that time, it's 9 o'clock at night in Ukraine. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon in America. And they told us, sorry, we can't help you. The next flight to Kazakhstan is in 24 hours tomorrow. And I said to my husband, I want to be in Kazakhstan. There's something going on, and we're going to be stuck over here at the airport for 24 hours. I don't have anything to do here in Ukraine. Anyway, he told me to sit down and calm down. He's going to work with the travel agent. They're going to work on it. So I'm sitting and brooding on a couch, and my American phone rings. I don't know why I answered it. Probably cost a fortune of money because I was in the Ukraine. But I don't know. I have this thing. If somebody calls, maybe somebody needs me. And a friend of mine calls and says, hi, Esther, how are you? And she's so jolly, and I'm so miserable. So I said, oh, Sarah, you called me at the wrong time. I'm stuck here in Ukraine, stuck without a flight to continue on. What is it you need from me? And she's so cheerful, and I'm so upset. So it was like such an incongruent moment. She said, I have to tell you the most beautiful story. I said, okay, maybe you'll cheer me up. So she told me that her son has a Chabad house, like you have in Arizona, many Chabad houses. And a member of his congregation lost their mother, and he went to pay a shiva call. And this man is a very important person, and the house was full of many, many, many people. He has a very large dining room, a living room that was all open. And in the middle of him talking to this man, from the women's section, a woman said something, and everybody got quiet. And the woman said, you're looking at us. We're all religious because of one candle. And nobody understood what she meant. How do you become religious from a candle? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So everybody in the room got quiet, and they looked at her, and she says, oh, I'll tell you what happened. We were completely irreligious. We didn't do anything Jewish at all. And one day I was walking to have my ears pierced with my mother, and somebody approached us and spoke to me and said, well, can we introduce you to lighting Shabbat candles? And my mother said, I'm sorry, we have an appointment. And she just took the packet and went on. And this lady goes on to say that a few hours later, her mother called up the number on the brochure of this pamphlet. And that number happens to be my number because I have it in my home in case somebody wants help. And I don't want them only to have it during business hours. And I remember the story, which as soon as she told me this, I remembered exactly what happened. Her mother called up and said, who are you people that care that I should light candles? And I said, well, we're part of the Lubavitch movement. And she said, are you the same people that go check mezuzot? They've been coming to my house to check mezuzot. I said, yes, we're the same. We're a sister organization. And she goes on to say that she never lit candles, but she remembers her grandmother lit candles. So I said, well, how about lighting candles with your daughter? So she said, well, that's very beautiful, but I don't know how. So I said, if you take a look at the pamphlet tells you exactly how. And the pamphlet has the blessing in transliteration, which means that it's the blessing in Hebrew words, but it's written in English. So you can read in English to say, Baruch Atah. And she said, oh, that's so beautiful. Maybe I'll do it because I haven't seen Shabbat candles since I was a little girl. Anyway, we continued talking, and she was saying that she was worried about her daughter and her sons because school is going to be over soon, and they live in a very bad neighborhood, and she's afraid of the influence from the neighborhood. She doesn't know what the children are going to do. And I don't know, I went on to this discussion of her sending them to a Jewish camp, and I said, how old are your children? And she tells me that her son is going to be 13 on August 15th. She didn't say bar mitzvah. I realized if she didn't say bar mitzvah, this boy is not being prepared for his bar mitzvah. So I said, if I help you get into a camp, would you send him? And she said, oh, if you would help me, I would send him. So I called up to a camp director and I said, I have this child that is turning bar mitzvah in a month and a half, and he doesn't begin to know about it. Please, would you take him to camp? It's an overnight camp. And you can teach him, and you can make a big celebration on his bar mitzvah. And the whole camp is going to be involved in helping this boy learn about his bar mitzvah. Lo and behold, they took him in, and I arranged for the girl and the other child to go to a day camp. And I was in touch with the mother. Her name was Claire. So I became very good friends with her just on the phone because she was so happy I took care of her children. And then she calls me up at the end of the summer. She says, my children don't want to go back to public school. They want to go to yeshiva. They had such a wonderful religious experience in the summer. So the children started going to yeshiva. So this lady who is mourning her mother, said that the whole family became religious because of that one candle that was given to her so many years ago. And as she told the story, she mentioned my name because she knew that I was very close to her mother. And this lady who called me, her son knows me. So they couldn't wait to tell me the story. I couldn't wait to come back from Russia and from Israel. I called up to this woman who lives in Chicago, and she went on to say how she's so excited that their whole life has changed and how the whole family became religious. And then she told me that the day they got up from mourning, her daughter gave birth to a baby girl, and her mother got a name that day. So I was so excited that a woman passed away and got a name right away. Sometimes it takes a long time to be able to get a name after somebody, depending on if they have a boy or a girl, or if there's relatives that are having children. Anyway, that story just touched me just at a time when I was so brokenhearted. I'm stuck in Ukraine, but she lit up my life with the story of how this one candle had an effect on an entire family. And throughout the years, it just grew. The effect grew and grew and grew. I made a plane by somehow somebody got us onto a different flight, and we went with a different company, and we made it to Kazakhstan. we were there for the celebration, and then we went back to Israel and we did what we had to, and then we came back to America and continued with the candle lighting campaign, trying to reach more people every day, trying to influence more women to have the beauty of the Shabbat candles light up their life. So if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. And if you would like a continuation of this one day, we can do that too, because I was just given 30 minutes and I think I went over. Rabbi?
Yeah, you never go over, however long you do. But thank you very much. If anyone does have any questions, please do unmute your mic, or if you have a comment or your own story that you wanted to share.
Oh, I'd love to hear any personal story.
Don't be shy. Stan or Betty, I see you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Well, in our house, when I was growing up, my husband, Stan, just asked me, did your mother light candles? And I said, I light the candles for the entire family. And the candlesticks were all Hebrew prizes that I won.
Wow. So your mother didn't have, so that means you got it from Hebrew school or something.
Right.
Wow. That's really beautiful. Elaine, you want to say something?
Can we get one of those candlesticks?
I'll be very happy to. You know, I produced them in China. I still have a supply. My new supply, I don't know when it's going to come in China, but I don't know if you want to touch them, but they came here before COVID. So I have a supply. And if my lady wants, I can ship them to him to give to you.
Well, they'll bless them and clean them for me before I touch it.
I'm happy to disinfect it.
No, I got a shipment of 20,000 in December of last year, and before COVID, so they're safe.
Do you send that in pairs? Is it 2 candlesticks?
Well, they're individual because we give girls 1, and if you want 2, you take 2.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, Ellen.
Okay, I have a comment. I told my father that I wanted my great grandmother, for whom I'm named, candlesticks. You know, when they pass away, or before they pass away. So my father said to me,
Right.
if you promise to light Shabbat candles every Friday night, you don't have to wait till we pass away. I'll give them to you now. Which was sort of funny because they were my mother's, not my father's, but okay. So he gave them to me, and we've been lighting them every Friday night. And it's very meaningful because they were my great grandmothers.
Sure. I'm sure.
And I taught kindergarten in one of the synagogues around here. And whenever we did our Shabbat program, I always had all the kids make Shabbat candle holders and gave them a candle and the blessing. And we would practice, so I hopefully gave them a good start.
I'm sure you did. That's wonderful.
Ellen, you're going to have stories soon of your students who call you up how they're teaching their children.
That would be nice.
I'm sure it will be.
Ethel, you wanted to?
Yes, where does it come from that we women or anybody lights candles? Where does that in the Torah or whatever? How did it get started?
Well, actually, the Torah said that we have to honor the Shabbat, Shamor v'Zachor. We have to remember it and we have to keep it. And we're told to do that by bringing light into the home. On Shabbat, I think most of you know, you're not allowed to create fire. And there would be no light at home at all. The Shabbat would be a dark room and there had to be light. So we were told to light the candles in honor of the Shabbat, to bring light into the home and make a blessing over it. And by making a blessing, we're bringing holiness into the home. We are told that Rebecca, our foremother, she lit candles. It goes back all the generations. We are told that when Sarah lit candles, the first mother, Sarah, her candles stayed lit all week long. Now, this was something spiritual that God did, that a candle stayed lit a whole week. When she passed away, of course, the candles were not lit anymore. But then when Rebecca was brought into the home as a potential bride, she lit her candle. She was 3 years old. If you take a look in this brochure, it tells a story that she was 3 years old when she was taken into the tent to marry Isaac. And she lit her candles before they were married.
Mhm.
And when he saw that those candles lit a whole week, they did not burn out, that the same miracle returned, he said, this is the woman I should marry. And this was his message. This was his signal that this is the woman he should marry, because her candles also stayed lit a whole week. So this is a biblical story that goes back all the way. And the Jewish women were given the honor that they should light the candles. As I mentioned in the beginning, if the woman is not home for any reason, then the husband is supposed to light candles, because every home should have candles lit to light up the house for Shabbos. Even though today we have electricity, we still light to honor the Shabbos with a candle.
Paula, you wanted to ask a question?
Esther, I know that my mother always lit 2 candles, but I know when we went to Malka's, she would light for the children too, even before they were older. What is the number? How do you know how many to light? And do I light now for my children, even though they're married and gone? I mean, on their own.
Okay, so the story is that you are a married woman is supposed to light 2 candles for Shabbat. That is what she should light. An unmarried lights 1. A married woman lights 2. Now, it is a custom, and you must not, it's not something you must do. There is a custom that you add a candle for each additional child, even if they get married. But if you gave birth to a child, you light a candle for each child. You don't have to, but it is a custom many people do. Now, I have to tell you that I have 11 children, God bless them, and they're married, but I still light 13 candles every Friday and before every holiday, because it's 11 plus the 2 that I started with. I have to tell you that my grandmother came to America in the middle of the war. They came in 1940, the beginning of 1940. They were very, very poor. My grandmother had 12 children. Unfortunately, 2 were twins and passed away very young. But she had 12 children. So she lit 14 candles. My grandfather knew that there's something very special about lighting beautiful candles. So he bought the very long, tall, tapered candles because they're beautiful. And it says that if you spend money on lighting beautiful candles, you'll be blessed with beautiful children. So even though they were so poor, and I still remember my grandfather having clothing that were tattered, and he didn't have money to buy a new frock for Shabbat. It was old and it was tattered at the sleeves, but he always spent the money for the 14 tall candles. And I thought to myself, what is it? There were just 2 tall ones and the other were plain. But he said, no, in honor of the Shabbat, he will spend the money, and it was 14 candles. I have to tell you that my grandmother's home to me was like a palace, because imagine 14 tall candles on the table, how beautiful that was. But the answer is that you light 2. You may light for every additional child, even if they're married. You don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Phyllis, go ahead.
Esther,
Yes.
your presentation was really inspiring. Is it possible to download that brochure that you're talking about from Chabad.org or?
Well, it's not on Chabad.org, but you know what? I'm going to send it to Rabbi Levy, and he'll put on his website.
Oh, wonderful. Then,
But it's not going to have Phoenix Times. You see, we print, the one I print here in New York has 10 major cities, and then we print individuals for different people that ask me to, and I print for Florida with 10 cities in Florida, Michigan for 10 cities in Michigan. So the times inside will not have your candle lighting times, but it'll have all the other information, and we'll ask Rabbi Levy what you can do about that. Perhaps he can print something up with the times. I'll speak to it.
Then just one other comment. My husband and I are new to Chabad. We have a Chabad rabbi. We live in Prescott, Arizona, which is in northern Arizona. And he's been here about 5 years. And I was always pretty consistent about lighting candles, but now I wouldn't miss it. But I learned, I never knew the custom of adding your children. And it's been a couple years ago, we were down at the Chabad house for Sukkot, and their little boy, who is now 6, he must have been 4, we were lighting candles, and he said, Phyllis, you need to light candles for your children too. So ever since that, Mendel is the one who told me about that, and I've been lighting them for our children ever since. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm very happy.
That's a good story. I like that. Any other questions or comments? Izzy, go for it.
Yeah, we get a permit from the Phoenix Fire Department to light Shabbat candles because we light 4 for my 2 for my parents, 2 for Pinky's parents. She says she's behind me in honor of the 50th wedding anniversary. We light 6 candles for our sons and daughter-in-law. We light 8 candles for the grandchildren, 1 candle for 9/11, and 1 candle for a very close cousin of ours that passed away. That's, and her mother's candlesticks. We light, I think it's 22 candles.
Wow.
Well, that's beautiful. The house must look beautiful with all those candles.
I just want to know, do you keep a fire extinguisher handy?
Well, I want to tell you a little secret. If your candles are on a tray of anything metal or ceramic, I tell you that nothing will ever happen. It has happened in my house that sometimes if a child would be a little rowdy, a candle would fall. But if it fall on the metal tray, it's just going to extinguish itself, or it's going to lay on the tray until the fire burns out, but it will not cause a fire. So I want to tell you that you can light as many candles as you want if you have a tray underneath. It could be of any metal, it could be aluminum, it could be ceramic, anything that doesn't catch fire, that's wood or material, and you will not have a problem. So even if it falls down accidentally, it'll fall onto something that will not cause a fire. And if you watch it, it's interesting to watch because it has happened, and it'll just burn itself out on this metal tray and it won't cause a fire.
So just don't keep it near your curtains, Izzy.
Oh, you should have it on the table that you eat. And you should have it in the center of the table. It's the most beautiful thing there. Okay, everybody, I wish you a very wonderful Shabbat. And we have Yom Kippur coming, so we light candles in honor of Yom Kippur. I just want to mention something that happens to me very often. I get many phone calls. We all light a yard side candle before Yom Kippur for any of our deceased beloved ones. And it's very important to light that yard side candle before the holiday candle, because just like Shabbat, Yom Kippur, once it starts, you may not make another fire. So you have to light the yard side candle first, and then you light the Shabbat or Yom Kippur candle, and then you're safe. So make sure to light the yard side candle first. I wish everybody a very easy fast and a very, very wonderful new year. This new year should bring us all a lot of health and happiness and safety, and we should get together on happy occasions, and I'll be happy to